Oh, hello. What's up, guys? Today, today we are going to talk. We are going back to squonking reviews, and today we are going to review the Peasant mods, DNA75 Squonker. Um, this is kind of a fun one to review because there's some stuff that you got to know about this first. This is made in by a guy named Alex Miller, very nice guy, in his apartment. So this is made in an apartment complex, fully handmade and everything. Almost no tools, almost no machine tools involved. It's not machine cut. It's largely very much hand cut. I believe he has a drill press and maybe like a lathe attachment for that drill press, and that's it. So hold on, gonna have a quick vape. Shout out to Adore E-Liquid. I have her Sinful Apple Roll in here right now, and it's a very nice bakery. So this one is a block that I sent him from Kevin Pritchard. It is a rosewood block, all natural, cut and made. And we'll take kind of the full gamut before we run it down to the desk, which we'll run it down to the desk right now. I know I haven't done a review in a little while, so let's do this. Shitty cloud transition. Alright, so we're down on the table with the Peasant Mods DNA75. Let's kind of take this thing apart and talk about it a little bit. So first we'll pop our out of here off. And here we go. So that is the 510. Now this is one of the long through pin Fat Daddy 510s, I believe. So the pin goes through, but it does come out. So it's very dependent on the bottle being in place in the 510 and an addy being screwed onto it. So if I pull out this guy right here, there we go. Took me a second there. There's a guy who makes string pulls that look like this that are super handy to have. You just kind of pop them around the bottle and slide them up in, and these are super handy to get your bottles out. And then this whole 510 pin assembly just kind of pops right out like so. See that there? So I'm not a super huge fan of this 510, but it does work okay, and the O-ring kind of gives you about a quarter turn, give or take, on lining up your air hole just fine, which is important because of this riser here that comes up so far. As I said, it's DNA75, eScribe compatible and all that. Let's take the battery out because we're going to talk about one of the things that I'm not super fond of. This is just a little Atwood tool slash pry bar slash screw bar that I really am quite fond of. Made out of titanium that I'm using to take the battery out. So it's a brass cap, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the inside. Let's try this. I'm going to try to shine some light down on the inside because we're going to talk about one of the issues that I have with this guy. Oh wow, that flashed it out really bad. That's even worse. There we go. So you see down in there? See the board? Those are the inductors on the board, right down in there. What's really one of the only real issues that I have is that there's no separation between the board and the battery. The DNA75 can get pretty hot when it heats up. I haven't had any issues yet, and I have used this quite a bit, but just as an error on the side of caution, I'm not super fond of the board and the battery kind of being able to touch like that, so to speak. So this is broken down. Oh, and I lost my little 510 pin here. So this is broken down the Peasant DNA75. This is going to be a little bit hard to caliper some sizes from, just because it's a freeform mod, so the sizes vary throughout the whole thing. But let's go ahead and give it a shot anyway. Let's see here. We're we're looking at about 78 there tall. At its widest, which I would say would probably be about right here in the swell, you're looking at about 60. This is all in millimeters, by the way. And at its deepest, you're looking at about 27. So it's really not that far off. And just for comparison's sake, let's throw some other Squonkers into the mix here. So here's the Art and Mod Evo. I just want to, this thing looks significantly bigger than what it is. And that's why I want to kind of throw some other Squonkers into the mix, just so you can kind of see that it's really not as big as it looks. There should be a Dia sitting around here. There it is. And I'll add in an Art Mod Dia. So side by side, you can see that it's minus this top piece here. It's a little shorter than the Evo. It is a little bit wider. But there's no real loss in comfort with this guy. And I'll move these guys off the table now. I just wanted to get a good side by side section for you to see it. So I mean, putting it back together is pretty easy. I suggest in this case that you screw on your atomizer before you put in your bottle, because you're going to have your little bit of variance is going to come from this. That kind of tightens the O-ring, and then it holds in that bottle nice and tight. So now that's on. Take my bottle, slide it up. One of the upsides is I can see and make sure that it's going on to the pin. And then we'll toss our battery back in. Something to note, because of the nature of this 510 and just how this 510 works in general, there's a little O-ring that goes underneath the pin that comes out. If at any point you find a little bit of leaking or a little bit of moisture on your bottle, check and make sure that you didn't lose that O-ring in replacing the Addy or something, because you will absolutely have a little bit of leaking if there's nothing stopping juice from coming up and then kind of pooling and coming back down. That was a problem that I had. I had an O-ring that was small enough and fixed it and worked. So I put it back in. So let's take another kind of turn around here, just so that you can kind of get a full picture. Oh, by the way, something that I didn't mention, and just something that I think is cool because I appreciate when modders do this. Let's go back to the boot up sequence here. Peasant mods. There you go. So that's an at the table look. We'll put these together. We'll come back up. We'll talk about it a little bit, and then we will. That'll be it. We'll be done. We'll be good. You can stop listening to me. Perfect. And we're back to the table with the to the table. Yeah, and we're back up. You can see me for the DNA75 Peasant mods. I have corrected my slight issue of not having the backdrop up as usual. So now that we've kind of broken this guy down and I've shown you everything about it, let's talk about it a little bit. Size-wise, this is a very nice, very comfortable mod. The work that went into it is very impressive, considering especially that, like I said at the beginning, it's made in an apartment complex. The biggest drawback to this mod, for me, and this is specific to me, is that it's a DNA75, and I do not like the DNA75, and that's because I build it like 1.7 ohms and vape at 24 watts, and you can't do that on the DNA75, so I run into problems. That's not terribly uncommon. That's really my biggest issue with the mod. The only other thing that I can possibly say, and hopefully I got this well on the table for it, is I don't like that there's no separation between the battery and the chip. That's something that I'm not super fond of about this specific device. But everything else about it, taking the squonk bottle in and out, squonking, the squonker position is in the right spot. Very, very solid mod, and a very nice mod to have in my collection. Have little to no complaint outside of those two things. Externally, it's very pretty. It does indefinitely look like it was made by hand, though. And that's something that you guys have to kind of bear in mind, that when you're going for something that's completely made by hand like this, you're not going to get perfect. You're going to get something that's made by hand. And it's a give and take, right? If you want perfect, go buy something that's machined. If you want something that you know was made by hand, like I know, for instance, it took him 9 hours to make this. 9 hours is a pretty significant amount of time to build a thing. And I'm happy with this thing because he spent 9 hours to build it. I will say that this is the freeform mod of squonking. This is, in a sense, the Geppetto of squonkers. A little rough on the inside, but very nice on the outside. And very ergonomic and built very comfortably on the outside. I say that is in the most accurate sense, but don't I'm not a Geppetto fanboy. Bear that in mind. So when I say Geppetto of squonkers, I'm talking both the goods and the bads that come with that. But overall, pretty pleased. My button did swell a little bit in shipping. That issue has all gone. It was just a little sticky for the first day or so. That's fixed. If it wasn't fixed, Alex was super great about it. He said if I had any problems, I could send it back. He'd take care of it. So great customer service and on that regard too, which is something that I look for, especially in a boutique mod like this. It vapes good. The 510 is not my favorite. I just prefer the SVA 510. I really do just prefer the SVA 510. But that being said, it's not a bad 510, and it kind of suits its purpose well, and it works well, and everything feels consistent. I guess the only other criticism that I'll say is I do wish that there was something around here. Not because there needs to be, because it's held in just fine, but because when I'm holding it, my pinky is under there, and these edges are just a little bit sharp, as opposed to there being something to cover it so that my pinky didn't feel like there was something sharp. I don't have any really big complaints. That's the thing. There's when you get into this kind of level of work, there's not a lot of big complaints. There's, the wiring's not perfect. There's no separation between the board and the battery, which is probably my biggest complaint. And stupid things like I wish there was a cap on the bottom hole. So all in all, I think it was worth it was absolutely worth what I paid for it, which was around $500. It was really nice that I got to send in a block and pick one because I'm a big fan of naturals, and this kind of goes in my lineup of natural stuff. And just it's a nice mod. If I like the DNA75 more, I'd probably like it a lot more than what I do. But for what it is, and for anybody who needs that extra wattage, I don't think you can go wrong with this. I don't know that there's anything that's really competing in that space really well right now. So, something to keep in mind. Those are my thoughts on the Peasant. I'm going to have one more vape on it. With the marquee, which is just vaping great. And I'll leave this one here. That seems like everything that I really need to say about it. There will be another video coming up eventually too for the third member of my squonking trifecta. Check this guy out. I think his group is secret now, but it's Peasant Mods. I'm not really sure how to get in. I know all his sales go through the group. So I don't know that I can really help you guys with getting your hands on one, so to speak. But, we'll see. Maybe he'll change his mind. Maybe he'll open the group back up. Peace out, everybody.